Welcome to the Huffing Spirit Podcast, where we take you from the sacred to the profane, from the serious to the silly, from the outer to the inner, and from the guru back to you. Join your playful podcast guides, Alex Hindley and Natalie Dick, as they bring you back to a grounded and more authentic approach to spirituality.
Today's podcast, we're going to be talking about emotional alchemy, and we're going to kind of unpack and pull apart and untangle what that actually is from our perspective.
It is a very needed conversation, very good thing to have in your toolbox.
Yes.
But I'm going to let you explain the why.
Okay. So
why are we talking about this?
Why are we talking about emotional alchemy? Because it is, for me, like one of the biggest things that people don't know how to actually feel their emotions, right? And if there's any nuggets or tidbits of information that anybody can get from this podcast, I think, emotional alchemy is a topic where it has a lot of gold. And it's really powerful when you learn to actually sit with the whole gamut of your emotions, right? The human experience, the full spectrum. And not many of us have ever had the opportunity to do so. And this creates so many issues in people's life. And so for me, emotional alchemy is one of the most important things personally in my life and in my practice. So that's my why. How about you?
As I'm trying to learn and understand, one thing I've learned from class in the last few years was that emotions are a great indicator where your energy might be blocked. Mm-hmm. But also, and this isn't my idea, I stole it from some Irish guy talking about Carl Jung, really cool podcast. And he was saying that your emotions are kind of like your job is to be Zeus on Mount Olympus. And there's all these emotions talking to you, and all those emotions are the different pantheon of gods. Okay. And Aries is always talking about war, right? And Aphrodite's always talking about like love. And
so they're characters.
They're characters. And when these emotions are talking to you, they're actually trying to get you to integrate higher levels of energy, higher levels of understanding yourself. They're trying to get you to the next level, right? So
that's interesting. I've never really looked at it like that.
So if Aries is in your ear, Aries is saying, fucking go to war, let's kill this person. What Aries is really telling you is you should probably draw better boundaries. The reason why you're pissed off is because this person encroached on your perceived space.
Ah, okay. Yes. So in that way, emotions are kind of the radar for certain levels of safety within your life, like whether you are safe or not. And I mean, detection of safety is a nervous system thing. But our emotions, I mean, for me, when I think about allowing ourselves to feel emotions, these are like the body's cues. And you can talk about the emotional body, because that's where, the emotions are in the body. They're energy in motion. It's like stuck or expressed or in movement, right? So, when we allow ourselves to be in contact with this, dynamic part of ourselves, it has so much information about what's going on internally and then what's going on externally. Like you said, like if somebody's crossing our boundary and we're like agitated, well, of course you're going to be agitated, right? That's like overstepping a boundary means you're not safe in some way. But what I think emotional alchemy to me is, let's actually like go to what alchemy is, and then we'll kind of get into what emotional alchemy, because alchemy is one of these very woo-woo words that I think they think it's like magic. And while it is, it's got some very like fundamental basic properties to it.
Yeah. And then you can get almost down like a historical conspiracy theory of like famous alchemists, and alchemy is the idea of transmuting one thing to another. And what the people were really trying to pursue was transmission of lead to gold is what
right. That would be in the material, the physical.
Yes.
World. Yeah.
But it's actually like an esoteric thing of saying that there are things within your life that you can be using as catalysts from going from here to there.
Yes. And that's
So
what
I've been the way that I was understanding it was that like it is part of that, yes, but it's also like a red herring to throw people off from like the true inner work of what you're doing.
So to me, alchemy, yes, in the physical kind of form. I think that, moving lead to gold is a perfect kind of metaphor. If you energetically look at maybe what alchemy is, it's allowing something to move and transform, like you said. And so for me, when I think about emotional alchemy, it's like actually feeling your emotions, because most of us aren't, I would say the majority of people don't know how to feel their emotions. They may be caught blindsided in this very kind of reactive state. Like most people feel reactively, right? And so emotional alchemy to me is when you are consciously allowing yourself to feel the full spectrum of all your human emotions, right? So going back to when you were a kid, were you allowed to be angry?
I was thinking about this the other day. No, I was not.
Yeah.
Because
right?
there was somebody in the house that was allowed to be angry.
Who?
My dad, but like he was allowed his temper, right? And that was like embarrassing for all of us. So you could never, and like my parents did an amazing job, and they also worked with like the tools that they had, right?
Yeah. It's a different, here's the thing. We're not blaming parents for this. This is a complete parental paradigm shift that's happening. Like what you grew up with and what I grew up with, we weren't allowed to be angry. We weren't allowed to express frustration. That was typically, you should be seen and not heard.
Well, and they didn't have the tool, they didn't have the understanding, and they didn't have the tools.
Exactly.
Where, you were telling me about this with your son the other day, that like George was having a fit, and you were just like, okay, cool, get it all out. Get it all out. You can't hit me, you can't hurt me, but like get it all out.
Yes.
Right. And allowing them to have that space to do it.
That experience, that expression. Yeah. 100%. And we have to make sure that the parenting, we can't blame parents for, they didn't know. Like our parents didn't have access to the information. They didn't know. It was, these are parenting paradigms that have gotten better and more conscious. But yeah, when we were kids, when I think of my son George throwing a meltdown because for God knows whatever reason, he was going through a transition, having some explosive moment, because kids can't rationally think. They don't have
that part of that brain developed.
No, they don't have that cerebral cortex to actually have to formulate like logic. They don't have logic. They are incapable of logic. Our parents didn't know that. So kids only have feeling. That's it. They only have feeling. So feeling is all these emotions that are being expressed through the body. And to me, the way that I try to parent, and trust me, it's hard because we're in the middle of shifting, parenting paradigms. But when George throws a fit, I let him fully explode. I don't let him trash my apartment or do dangerous things, but I try to acknowledge him when he's having a very big explosive moment, because to me, that's an energy that needs to come out. And if it doesn't come out, it's going to be repressed, which we know that repressed emotions lead to dis-ease later on. It leads to a whole bunch of character adaptations and blah, 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 blah. So emotional alchemy, when you've never been taught how to feel emotions, that's really hard for most people. It's really hard for me sometimes. And this is stuff that I'm in it and I practice and I teach, but to feel something in your body is like a foreign language.
So where do you think that would you call it repression? Where do you think that repression comes from, and where do you think we go from here?
So I think that repression is the stuff that happened to us in the past. We weren't allowed to express. Suppression is the pattern. It's the consistent pattern of us. Like if you got angry, say you're driving down the street and somebody cut you off, and you were just like, I'm going to lose it right now. I'm going to like blow up and explode on that guy. But you have somebody in the car, right? You're in that moment, you're suppressing that anger, right? It's the feeling in your body.
Mm.
So, and what that creates is like kind of like stress hormone. No, what I'm not saying is that you get out of your car and like go blow up on the guy down the street. That's not what I'm saying, but that's kind of like when you are in this constant state of not allowing yourself to feel anger, you know what I mean? Some people have never felt anger. Like, have you ever run into those people?
Yeah.
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 What are they like?
It's also not an attractive like we're told not to be angry, right?
Yeah.
And if you see somebody angry, you know, we don't go, oh, they're
having a dysregulated moment.
They're having a dysregulated moment. Yeah. We don't say that at all. We're like, look at this crazy person. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this person's a XYZ.
Loose cannon. Like, yeah.
Totally. And especially in the work environment, right?
Oh,
and there is a lot of like unconscious traumatizing that's happening just in the work bases. You know, like there's people that are like quote unquote attacking you, and you have to defend yourself in a very polite, political manner, and your inner side you're just like, I want to rip this dude's throat out.
Yes.
Like, you did this and you copied somebody on an email trying to make me look like an ass because you didn't want to read that previous thing.
Yeah.
And so like on a historical side, like where do you think, like peeling this back, do you see this related to the evolution of humans?
Yes.
You know, like this.
So I do, because I think emotional alchemy it's not done through rational thinking, right? This is done through the heart, right? Like it's done through like feeling. And I always say like feeling is this kind of conscious interpretation of emotions. Emotions are like those biochemical processes in the body that are, you know, within movement that create different hormones to interact. Like if you go to Candace D. Purton's book,
Molecules of Emotion,
it's like these patterns of emotions are stuck in the body, right? And then we have this like kind of chemical reaction, and then we feel something, and that's our interpretation, right? Like it's our experience, right? So most people haven't made the connection that they have feelings in the body. They blame it on an external part of the world that, oh, that guy's an asshole, or this is happening to me. And for some people, traumatic events do happen, right? But I would say the majority of people who have very big, like maybe emotional outbursts, and they're not consciously aware that they're having them, those are the ones that would probably not connect that, right? Like they're unconsciously losing their shit, right? And we've done that. I've done that where I've lost my shit on somebody, and then I'm like, whoa, I was really out of line. So that type of emotional expression, I'm not a big fan of, because I feel like that's like reactive, like being reactive to situations. Where I'm talking about emotional alchemy is when you know you feel something, right? Obviously, you're not going to do it in public unless it's, you know, valid. Like there's a valid reason why you should like blow up. If somebody's like putting you in danger or crossing a boundary, anger is obviously the first emotion that's going to come up that you're going to express. But for those people who are mostly repressed, like walking around totally repressed, have never got to experience their anger, feeling it in a way that's in a safe container for yourself, whether it's in session with somebody or learning how to do that, that is emotional alchemy, when you're actually doing it in a conscious way, when you're allowing yourself to engage in some of these like repressed emotions that have never had like that outlet, right? That for me is when that's a very transformative process, when you can get in touch with like deep anger or deep rage that has been repressed for a long time. What that does to the energy system, it just frees up so much space. And then what's under a lot of that heaviness is the joy and the bliss and all that stuff that we seek to feel, like the happiness, but we can't access that because it's like Yeah, that's my
You've armored to
yeah,
protect.
you've armored yourself to protect yourself, right?
And
So
wasn't it Pert that like essentially found through that book or through her studies and work that like there is no distinction between mind and body?
yeah, it's all happening at the same time. It's like everything's interfacing at once. When people, it's the psychosomatic, right? Psyche and soma, the body, are connected. So when we deal with like categories of health, and I'm going to go over here for my mental, it's all connected. It's all happening at the same time. So that repression has dire consequences on the body, right?
Yeah, and what comes to me is as we're talking about it, repression is contraction.
Yeah. It's like constricting. It's constricting instead of expanding. And it's like, and again, I don't want to make it seem like if you're mad, you should go on a like throw an adult temper tantrum in the grocery store and start like throwing shit around. That's not helpful to, that can be a scary moment, right? But there are like, think about like we're animals, like the primal part of us, like that rage, that wildness of what we are as human beings. We're animals. That you can't erase that. So those intense like feelings they've got to have an outlet. That's part of who we are.
Yeah, and I would recommend Transforming Trauma, I think by James Gordon or Gordon in the name somewhere.
Yeah.
And he talks about that, like, as an animal experiences stress from being chased, it always shakes it off. And we do not do that as human beings. We just take it on. And so when you experience something traumatic and your body doesn't understand the difference between being late for a report or a meeting versus being chased by a lion, trauma and stress are like the same thing in the body. It doesn't know the difference.
Yeah. It's
so
like,
we should have these mechanisms, and he goes through it in the book. I would recommend everybody read it because he talks about shaking, and you just get in touch with like shaking and gives you like exercises and breathing and ways that you can like work through, or God forbid, just take a pillow, like yell into a pillow, hit a pillow,
yeah.
get it out when you need to get it out.
Yeah, and these are the somatic experiencing that's how you move stuck emotions out of the body. You can't just think your way through a feeling. Like you cannot get in touch with your feelings by thinking it through. It's impossible because the feeling is stuck in the body, right? The thinking is in kind of like the mental space, right? So, and that's what I will say is one of the most challenging things for like in my practice of what I see people is that when I say, what do you feel in your body? Is there a physical sensation? Is there an emotion that comes up? That link is not there because they're thinking about it. They're thinking. They've completely lost the connection to the feeling body, right? And so that's the part of emotional alchemy is like bringing it into the body, which is, and through the heart, which is through like that safe container, right? So
is there a process that you should be doing before you're bringing it into the heart? Like, a lot of things we do in energy work, you're emptying beforehand. So you're talking like, if you're talking anger and bringing that into the heart, is there anything you need to be doing to like protect yourself internally, energetically?
Well, I think like, what do you mean? Like protecting like
well,
your...
like what's coming to me is that when you're facilitating for a person or people, you need to be holding a container and you need to have like a certain protection there that you're setting, obviously very important. And we're talking about processing emotions, but you're also talking about like bringing certain emotional components into the heart. I think of the heart as like love, but like, does something happen to the heart when you're bringing anger into it? Or is it just like, because this is the heart chakra, your like love is transmuting?
Yeah, that right there is what I feel is emotional alchemy. It's because you're bringing it you're bringing the emotion of like say anger or rage, but you're bringing it into a container of self-compassion, because that when you think of the full spectrum of who you are, you have all these like dark hidden parts of yourself. These like, we can go into shadow work, but like these are the repressed feelings, like the frustrated temper tantrum. I want to go wild. And like, I have those feelings. Like when I get, when I get triggered, like I'll fully admit yesterday, a practice for me is when I have massive agitation in my body and I'm just like, it's the state in my nervous system where I am like in sympathetic activation, right? I'm agitated. I want to like mobilize. I probably want to punch something.
So where do you feel that in your body, or is it different every time you feel it?
And this is subjective for people, right? Like this is going to be subjective, but there are patterns of where this kind of like lands in the body, but typically it's going to be upper body, right? It could be lower body for somebody, but for me, I feel it all up in my shoulders and my neck, my jaw gets tight. It is the activation of my nervous system where I'm like, it's fucking go time, right? And this is a feeling in my body that I need to hit something. And what it is essentially are stress hormones being activated within your body. My dog's barking. Can you hear my dog? One second. So the stress. We'll just...
In her spare time, Natalie has an underground dog fighting facility in her apartment.
There we go. Okay, we're back to recording. Let's cut that out. Where were we?
Dog fighting. You were talking about transmuting it through the heart.
Oh, I was saying, like, when you're activated, if you are unaware that you're activated, that you're agitated, right? And you will just unconsciously project that onto somebody else, right? That's when you can take responsibility for your feelings and you're just like, oh my God, I'm agitated. And yesterday I felt so overwhelmed. I took a pillow and I smashed my bed, right? And I have these somatic experiencing techniques where I like push on the floor and I scream and I let those stress hormones out because I'm in the safety of actually experiencing it, right? I'm allowing myself to feel it and move through it in a room where there's nobody there, right? Where I'm allowing it to be there, right?
And I found one of those like battle ropes for the gym. I found one for like $30-$40 last year, and I finally found a place for it. And I we were talking earlier before the episode started, like there might be some stuff going on cosmically that's kind of having
there's definitely.
So I have this moment and I'm like feeling like I want to throw my kid and he's not doing anything. I'm just like, oh, and he stands like away from me and I just take this rope and I'm just like, like just going like a crazy person. And you do it 3 or 4 times and you're like, I'm pretty good. I got it all out.
Boom. That's emotional alchemy. You're moving and you're taking a stuck and repressed energy and you're moving it out of your body so that your body can like therefore expand. And how do you feel after that?
It's good. It's out. Like the channel's clear.
There you go. Yeah. That's like, go ahead.
Would you say laughter is another form of spiritual alchemy?
Yeah, for sure. You mean emotional alchemy or spiritual?
Oh, well, yeah, I actually think it's both.
Yeah. Laughter is an emotion for sure. But I'm talking about like, here's where, nobody runs away from feeling happy. We can create adaptive personas that don't allow us to, think that we're not worthy of being happy, right? Like we can kind of sabotage ourselves. But like for the most part, humans are seeking bliss and tranquility and passion and joy and all of these kind of quote unquote positive things. Like those are things that, and when you feel them, where do you feel it usually in your body? Probably
happiness. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like the kind of the good feelings, right? We feel it typically in the heart area.
Yeah, you're not like, oh, my head is.
You're not like clenching your jaw, ready to like snap on somebody.
Yeah.
Right. It's typically in this area. So.
Well, and I think that's why like the heart chakra is so important because you're 7 main chakras. You got 3 down here for earth and you got 3 for the heavens. And that is the intersection between heaven and earth.
And for me, like when I think of alchemy, it's like taking all parts of you that you don't want to experience and moving it through the heart space so it is safe, because the heart holds like source energy, which is like infinite love. And if there's infinite love in the heart space, it can hold anything. It doesn't mean that it's like softening and allowing these intense feelings that we never got to feel. And it's, once it moves through, it's that softening. It's okay, you're allowed to be angry. I'm going to allow you. I'm going to hold you. I'm going to love you through your angry moment. It's like loving yourself through anger, right?
Well, and I think that's the other part, right? We're not taught how to love ourselves. We're not taught how to accept ourselves where we are. And you're like, oh, I love, I can't remember, this is not my original thought, but somebody says, like, when you say all the things that you love in your life, do you ever say yourself first? I love my dog. I love my kid. I love this. I love that. But nobody goes, I love me.
That's kind of fundamentally who you should love the most first, right?
Agreed. But we don't. We're just...
No. But wouldn't it also be like absolutely incredible if we walked around and we saw people actually authentically expressing what they feel? Like, I'm really angry. It doesn't mean you're attacking and throwing a fit. This is where it gets out of control. But if somebody said, I'm really angry right now, I'm having an experience, and people would be like, okay. And they're not triggered by it, but they're like, okay, you're having an experience. What's going on? And like actually empathetically letting somebody have that experience for a moment. Like, can you imagine what would the world be like if we just like allowed people to express that feeling? Like,
yeah.
And then people are like, oh, okay, I'm done. It's like, because we're so like trained to conform to being like the good girl or the good boy. And we don't, then we have to chase around people to be accepted, because this opens up a whole host of issues of if you're not expressing authentically what you're feeling, then you're not accepted.
Well, yeah, but there's a biological mechanism where you're trying to blend in. You're not trying to ruffle feathers. You're trying to protect yourself, 100%. And you're fighting the biological instinct from millions of years before you, of society coming from like everybody has specific roles that they have to do, and you have to kind of be a cog because we're all tribal and we're all working together.
Yes. However, okay, so maybe not adults, but what if we just let children have their full emotional experience? Do you think that those children, if given the opportunity to express themselves with boundaries, not giving in to everything that they do you think they would grow up actually feeling more authentic? Like, can you imagine a world where if you were allowed as a kid to throw the temper tantrum, to be angry or to be pissed off at mom because she hurt you and express that without getting in trouble? Like, I think that would change the way that people hold so many patterns in their body, right? Because they never got to express that. And it's like, it creates that armoring.
Well, I think you're on a good start with your kid, and I'm trying to model that.
We're not perfect.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
We're not.
No.
But we're all being called to kind of integrate and transcend in our own ways.
Yeah.
Transcend and include, and it's especially being a parent, it like infinitely increases your training opportunities.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. It is the hardest job in the world.
There are legit days that you're just like, am I ever going to feel like I'm fucking doing this right? Like,
oh God, yeah. There's days where you're just like it's usually after they fall asleep, you're just like, that was a fucking trip, man. Like, it's tough.
Yeah.
So
if you want to practice emotional alchemy, don't wear rubber, fucking have a kid, and have all of your foibles thrown in your face so you can train more.
Yeah, but like, can you imagine like if you were just say, okay.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't have classified only having kids for people that like adopt and take care of sort of a very important purpose as well.
Of course, or like parents who like mothering or fathering of other things. So
yeah.
Can you imagine if I have to put that in there?
I'm a plant dad, and I was offended they didn't reference that. It's infinitely as difficult to take care of this goddamn plant as it is a small child.
I just threw 3 plants out. Like, I am a failed plant mom. I'm so upset about that. So I bought 3 new ones. Fingers crossed they live. But could you imagine if like even, and this is where I think humanity is going, or where it needs to go, right? The more conscious we become, which means we're more empathetic, the more in our heart space that we are. It means that we can hold more perspective, hold more love, which is like infinite. If we're walking on the street and we see somebody just throwing a fit, right? Just throwing a fit. If we're reactive to that fit, or if we are just empathetically watching them, just saying like, wow, they're having like a dysregulated experience. Like they're having a really tough time. Do you think that person that's greeted with empathy versus reactivity, what's gonna diffuse that person?
Well, if you're doing said approach, you're approaching to their most advanced part of their brain, as opposed to the reactionary part, which is the most simple, primitive part.
The most primitive part of their nervous system and their brainstem. Yeah.
So does I don't want to go too far off on a tangent. Does any of this tie into like polyvagal theory at all?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Very much, because it's nervous system dysregulation, right? You want me to go into it?
Sure.
Well,
although like one of my roommates is not napping, so.
Oh, okay. Well, we could leave that whole polyvagal theory. I mean, polyvagal theory is wonderful. It's not everything, because it's working with the physiology of our nervous system and its activation, right? We can get activated and it goes into 3 different states, right? And it's these fluidly moving through these states. But our emotions and allowing ourselves to feel is an important part, right? And polyvagal theory is working a lot with I would say just the physiology, but like working somatically to like breathe through things. But we still have the emotions and we still have to feel them, right? It doesn't, those two combined are important.
Well, there's a lot of resonance in what you're saying for me, but also that forgiveness seminar that I was in the other week. And we were talking about spiritual bypassing, and it's very easy to just be like, oh yeah, I let it go and I'm good. And as Dan Moore was saying, like, if you're not feeling it, if you're not learning it, you're not getting the gold from it, then you're just kind of bypassing it. And you have to allow yourself to feel it. You have to practice it as well. It's not like something where you're just like, oh, I know how to forgive. Like, I can do pull-ups really well now, but it took me months on months of just like being able to do 1. And I'm like, okay, now I can do 5. Now I can do.
I tried to crawl across the monkey bars with George yesterday, and I did 2. I almost ripped my arm out of its socket. I was like, holy shit, this is hard.
People are like, oh, you want to do like, would you ever do American Ninja Warriors? Like, I'd rip my fucking shoulder out of the socket. I'd fall to break my neck on the way down.
That one swing, I was like, oh my God, my shoulder. It's like, I felt like my armpit kind of pop out. But I think like the majority, I will say this again, majority of people that I see in my practice, the toughest thing they have to learn is to feel, because they're just like, I'm going to think it through. And I'm like, no, you got to feel it. And feeling is in the body. And it's like moving it through the heart space and allowing yourself to experience like this full spectrum of emotions, right? That to me is what emotional alchemy is. And it's really important. It's so important for your healing practice.
Well, and if you have trouble holding yourself there, I would recommend like almost viewing yourself as a small child. And as you're experiencing that as a small child, like hugging yourself, getting that hug that you wanted to receive. Yeah,
that's like a model of therapy that's called like reparenting. You're working with your like inner child, and then maybe you didn't get your needs met as a kid, and having, your adult self now come in to kind of reparent and hold space for that version. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can do it, but there's a lot of repression that I see that contributes to so many psychological issues, physiological issues. Like it really, really screws up the energy system.
Well, and I mean, there's a lot of reasons why we're not taught to feel.
Yeah, because it's uncomfortable. People don't want to feel uncomfortable. That's why there's like scrolling, and I'm going to numb myself. That's why addictions come into play and all sorts of things. I mean, that's a whole thing. It's like feeling, I think, is like one of the most important things. As soon as you start to learn how to feel yourself and the emotions that reside within your body, that's like one of the fastest ways to start feeling the authenticity of yourself and like releasing so much stored shit that's blocking your field from expanding, right?
Well, and I also think it's important to note that as you alchemize yourself, you get to new levels. It doesn't mean that you're ever done integrating your shadow. And again, shadow is not necessarily negative. You as you expand your light, you expand your shadow as well. So you're going to have more work. It's not a thing that you're like, oh, I can feel more and now it's good. It's just,
well, you know what you get comfortable with? You just get comfortable with your own discomfort. It's like, oh, I'm actually comfortable with this despair. I'm going to let myself feel despair and cry my eyes out. And then you move through it. That like the tears are like the actual alchemy, right? Like it's transforming something that you're resisting so badly. And then you just get comfortable with it. Doesn't mean you're in a depression. Depression is not allowing yourself to feel it, right? But when you can allow yourself to feel it and be like, okay, yeah, that's done. Moving on, next, right?
So most people are barely able to feel, like on the baby step of the spectrum, we're looking for people to begin to start feeling. But in terms of like, becoming an emotional alchemist, what does that look like when you go from like that spectrum?
I think first starting, I would start with a body scan. Like start scanning your body and for physical sensations and feelings. Like physical sensations are feelings, right? So you can say, okay, I'm sitting on the chair, my butt, I can feel my butt on the chair. And then the next feeling is, oh, I have this like sharp ache in my collarbone. Oh, yeah, that's there. Okay. And then actually sitting with your body and closing your eyes and being like, okay, what emotions am I feeling in my body? And just kind of scanning your body and seeing what emotions are there. That's a really powerful, I would say that's probably sometimes for some people a more powerful practice of actually like scanning your body and feeling versus sitting there and meditating because you're going to float away. Yeah. So
spiritual alchemist then, like we're talking somebody who's like achieved this. What are the benefits? What do you notice? Or when do you become enlightened and when do you get your cloud to sit on?
Yeah, enlightenment. That's like, I feel like I almost hate that word.
There's so many wonderful words that have just
guess what, guys? I've been enlightened. I've hit the top level of humanity. Bye. So what are the benefits of feeling?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're connecting to the parts of yourself that have been repressed. So you're going to free up parts of your energy system so you can actually like expand and feel yourself. Sometimes if it's too much, like going into the body can be very overwhelming, especially if you have trauma. Work with somebody. This is a big reason why a lot of people don't feel, is because they do have trauma. They don't want to, it's like they can't go in the body. They can't feel. It's like it's safer to be neck up, disassociative. So I think finding somebody who can guide you through that is really important to help you feel. Because if you can't do it on your own and it's too dangerous, then don't do it alone. But
shout out to our Find a Teacher episode.
Yeah. Find somebody who can guide you through that. But it's like a gold mine. Like this body, I feel like it's a gold mine. It's like there's so many hidden nuggets of information, and that comes through your emotions. This is how we experience being human. It's like all the sensations and all of the feelings. Like I don't even know if the English language or any language for that matter that can actually describe all of emotions and feeling. Right? That's came here. We incarnated in our human body to feel, to experience, right? And that's like pleasure and like all these beautiful emotions, right? So that's the benefit, I think. You just get better at feeling and get deeper into the pleasure parts of your body. And everything.
Well, I think like there's you get better in touch with a more meaningful life.
Yeah. I mean, life is to be experienced and to be felt, right? If you can't feel like all the parts of yourself. Like you're only accessing a smidget of who you are. Smidget, just a smidget, right?
Yeah. And I think it was Plato or Socrates, like the answers are all within you.
Yeah. That's what this whole podcast is about. It's like, go do your work. Like literally everything is here inside of you. It's like sorting through and allowing yourself to feel and move through that. That's like
only you can do the you work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So homework, we're due to talk about our homework from the last 2 episodes as well. So we'll do that the next episode. What would you say the homework is?
Body scans.
Body scans.
Body scans. So
take 4 or 5 minutes,
4 or 5 minutes a day. I would say that this is more powerful than meditation for some people who can't sit in meditation because they drift off or they get distracted. It's because you're not connected to your body and what you're feeling. So sit with your body, close your eyes, go from the top of your head and start with physical sensations. What do I physically feel? And then after that, go through your body, start from your head all the way down and go with emotions. Like, what do I emotionally feel? And that's kind of like the languaging of your body through your emotions.
I'm excited to do this. I haven't.
It's really powerful. I love this. This like literally shocks people when they do it. They're like, oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. So I kind of do a scan every day of like, oh, my neck's tight or, my shoulder's not. So I'm excited to do it. Okay. What's going on here?
Oh, I was going to say, so next time you do a scan and your shoulders are tight, right? This is how your body speaks to you. It's like the way that your body is like, hey, I got information. It's like how you get sick. It's like, when people get sick, it's the way that the body is like, something's going wrong here. Something's been going wrong for a long time. That's the language of the body, right? So it's like the body speaking to you. So the next time you close your eyes and you have that pain in your neck, acknowledge that pain in your neck and say, okay, yeah, it feels tense. And then see if that tension kind of dissipates a little bit. And if it dissipates, you may notice like an emotion underneath that, right? What's the emotion? Acknowledge the emotion, and then you start listening to this like fantastic story your body's telling you.
So the homework is a body scan for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Preferably try to like sit somewhere where you're not distracted.
Mm-hmm.
Head to your toes, you're scanning for physical sensation.
And then emotional feeling.
Okay.
And watch. It's one of the hardest things. People are like, I don't know what I'm feeling. They think, feel.
And it's okay to not have a word for it.
Yeah. It can come up in use your imagination. Maybe it comes up as an image, a symbol, a color, all that stuff. Okay, so we'll see you next time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for everybody for listening. Have fun, do the homework, and this is gold here, and you're your own gold mine. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, Emotional Alchemy, go get it. Do the body scans. We'll see you next time.
Hasta luego.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Huffing Spirit Podcast. Remember, you are your own teacher. Take what resonates and leave the rest. For more info, follow us on Instagram at Huffing Spirit Podcast and subscribe on Spotify or iTunes. Bye for now.